Later this year, we are going to be doing a bit of a celebratory month on 25 years since the Sydney 2000 Olympics. Can you believe it has been a quarter of a century since those Olympics in our very own backyard? And today I'm so thrilled to talk to somebody who was part of those Olympics, created history at those Olympics, and it was one of 4 Olympics that she went to, a career that spanned 2 Olympic medals as well as multiple Commonwealth Games medals, World Championship medals, World Cup medals. And it's a pleasure to be able to talk about diving because it's been a while on this show since we have. It's a thrill to welcome to Off the Podium, Ludi Wiggins. Ludi, welcome to Off the Podium.
Thank you so much, Ben. I can't actually believe it's been 25 years. I think when most people say 25 years ago, we're thinking like 1985 or 1990. So, yeah, unbelievable.
I don't even think I've turned 25 yet, Ludi. Neither of you.
Me neither.
Yeah, we weren't alive 25 years ago. What's anyone talking about? But I'm so excited to chat with you because we're sort of chatting a bit off air in the fact that our paths kind of crossed in the past because your husband is Tasmanian. Your husband went to school with my sister. Your husband is a champion of my favourite Australian rules football team for people outside of Australia as well, who I believe I tried to get on a different show many, many years ago. But I just think it's kind of funny that Tasmanians always seem to bounce into each other. You're obviously not Tasmanian, but I'm sure Simon gets it all the time that like, oh, you're Tasmanian. It just comes about, right? So it's weird that paths come about even after all these years and it's all, I say, connected to Tasmania.
It is. Everything always goes back to Tasmania. And no, I'm not from Tasmania, but I'm an honorary Tasmanian.
You're married to a great Tasmanian, so that basically gives you citizenship. I don't think we dish that out in this state, but we should. So, that's it. And I swear I will not focus this interview on talking about your husband and his footballing career because, that's another interview with that side of things as well. But one thing I want to ask about that, at the peak of both of your athletic careers, when he's playing AFL football, you're at the Olympics. I mean, are you like this power couple? Like, were you being papped everywhere? Were people wanting to see Ludi and Simon out and about sort of in the magazines and all of that sort of stuff?
Oh, look, I don't think so. Both Simon and I are pretty introverted. So we're homebodies. We both call ourselves extroverted introverts. So yes, we like people. We get energy from people, but at the end of the day, we do like being at home and with small, close groups of family and friends and things like that. At our peaks, I think our peaks were at different times. So mine was probably, let's say 2004 to 2006. And then I retired for the first time from diving. And then Simon's peak was around 2010. And I don't think it's any coincidence that I had kind of taken a step back and then Simon started to peak. So it's really hard for 2 people in the same household to both be individual athletes and be really succeeding. Because I think to have that level of success and high performance, you do really need to internalize it and focus on yourself. So it's really hard for 2 people to do it at the same time. Yeah,
I can definitely imagine. I've got asked the big burning question though. Does him playing for Carlton make you a Carlton fan? Or does that just come in the household?
Yeah.
Good. All right.
It does. Yeah. It actually does. Because he's a life member now. So he played 116 games. We go to the games when we can. My son and our son and our daughter play football as well. And we love Carlton. Yeah. But we are very excited for a Tasmanian team to come
Correct
into
answer.
Play.
Yes.
So let's push for that.
Indeed. But as much as I want to talk about all of that, we're here to talk about you, Ludi, and your amazing career. Because diving's actually a sport we've not covered too much on this show, which I'm ashamed to say. But your career, your background is gymnastics, which then transitioned into diving. How does gymnastics start for you? And then sort of how did that transition work into getting into diving?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because diving, it's not a mainstream sport, but it has been at Olympic Games since early 1900s and one of the original sports. And so it's got a long, long history. In terms of gymnastics, probably the same. It's something that the participation levels and accessibility is probably more so than diving. So if you've got a really active child when they're 5 years old, you're automatically going to try and put them into some kind of activity that burns that energy. And that was definitely me. I was a little monkey. I was always standing on stairs. I was jumping off really high things. And we used to have a 2-story house and I'd be walking across the balustrade and my mum would be absolutely petrified. So it made sense to put me into gymnastics. This was when we first moved to Australia. I was about 5 years old. We lived in Darwin. So I did gymnastics in Darwin. Yep. And so then when I was 9 years old, in 1988, we moved to Brisbane. And it was a better gymnastics program. Got quickly earmarked for the 1996 Olympic Games as a squad, and this was like a 9 or a 10-year-old.
That early? Wow.
Yeah, that early, because gymnastics is generally a really young sport. Yeah. So around that age, I had to move to Canberra away from my parents because Brisbane just didn't facilitate that kind of transition into an Olympic squad. Moved to Canberra at 11 years old, 3 months away from my parents. And that was really hard. So got incredibly homesick. Obviously, I was born overseas, so still adapting to Australian life and Australian culture. Lived in Canberra for 3 months, and then I just can't do this anymore. My parents couldn't be away from me anymore. And my physiotherapist at the time didn't lead back to Tasmania this time, but it did lead back to, she was married to the head coach of diving for the Australian Institute of Sport, which was based in Brisbane. She suggested that I try it out. Wow. And I think, yeah, the rest is history. So I started diving when I was 11 years old.
There you go. It's fascinating that program that they have in gymnastics at that age, that they sort of can, realize it's a young sport, but they're able to go like, you're this young, you're going to make an Olympics potentially in this time. Did that light a spark, even though obviously gymnastics wasn't the path you ultimately took, but you hear the word Olympics and then all of a sudden transition to diving, that you're still thinking, hey, Olympics, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember it was a Today Show interview when I was about 10, and they said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to go to the Olympic Games and I want to win a gold medal for Australia. So I think just very early on, I was obsessed about sport. I loved watching it. The 1992 Olympic Barcelona Games was just on VHS and just reruns. I loved it.
Yeah, I love talking to someone on this show, Ludi, who has watched the game, because that was the first games I remember watching. I mean, I don't want to make you feel a certain age. I mean, I was 1 year old when you said you were 5 years old, but it still, I remember Barcelona, whereas we get so many people now on this show who are like, oh, my first Olympics I watched was Rio, and you're like, oh, shut up. Right. So it's sort of, that makes me feel slightly more comfortable. Did you do other sports outside of gymnastics before you get to diving? Were you sort of very sporty kid outside of doing gymnastics?
Just a basic school sport. So I did softball, I did netball, but, that didn't really take off. I'm quite fast and I can run, but I'm also very small. So the netball thing didn't work out for me. But yeah, I was just generally participated. But I think sports like diving and gymnastics are all consuming. Mm-hmm. You're either all in or all out, and you're doing it. It's not something that you do once a week, so you can do other things. You're either doing it 10 times a week or you're not doing it at all. So didn't allow to explore much. And that watching my kids do sport now, it's something that I love for them, is that they can try many different things and it's not all encompassing and they're not doing 10 sessions a week, and it's just a bit more balance.
Given that you were that young age when they said you're on a path for Atlanta for gymnastics, when you switched to diving, did you keep a mindset that Atlanta was possible? Were you being told this, or was it a case of Sydney's, well, by then probably 2000, Sydney might not have been announced at that point, but look at 2000, if Atlanta happens, it happens, but it's not realistic?
No, probably when I started diving, I wasn't on the scene at all to kind of make an Olympic Games, yet let alone make a state squad or anything like that. But I was just, I guess, very committed. I would turn up every day. There were certain coaches at the Australian Institute of Sport in Brisbane that actually said, oh, no, I don't think she's very good. I would miss sometimes sessions because I was too tired, and that's not deemed I guess that you're a high achiever, but when you're 10 years old, sometimes you've got a headache and you go, Mum, I don't want to go to sport. And what's my mum to force me to go to a session? But I think the turning point really was when Chava Sobrino came to Australia. He was a Mexican diving coach, and he just saw the potential in me when I was about 15 years old in 1995. And he came to Brisbane and he goes, we're going to get to next year's Olympics. And he came to my house with my family and said, this is what we're going to aim for. And everyone thought he was crazy. Wow. Everyone thought he was absolutely crazy, but he just saw something, and he really nurtured me in a way and just taught me technique that no one had taught me. And it was more he worked on the mental aspect of me believing in myself rather than the physical. Because I think diving and gymnastics, they're God-given gifts. You've either got it or you don't have it, and then it's just a matter of nurturing. If someone's able to compete, and that's something that didn't come very naturally to me. So in training, I'd be fantastic and people would be like, yep, she's great. I'd go into competition and then I'd come last in that competition because my legs would buckle and I'd be overthinking and things like that. So that's where Chava, that's what he was really good at, is being able to, I guess, make it their own idea. So make someone really believe in themselves. And so you're not relying on those external factors.
I love hearing that mental aspect because we've brought it up a couple of times in the show. I recently read Anna Meare's autobiography, and she talks a lot about in that book about how as an athlete, there's a level you get to where you're basically at the peak of your physical powers. This is the best you're going to do. You're that good. But it's the mental training that often makes you better than your rivals, similar to what you're saying. And sometimes I feel like a lot of us non-athletes who don't go through the rigmaroles of everything that you guys do in your career, we don't fully understand how important that is because particularly as you're saying, gymnastics, diving, they are sports where, yeah, you kind of have to have it, right? Like the reason why I'm not a diver or a gymnast, Ludi, but I mean, and this is obviously
it's never too late, by the way.
Well, thank you. We'll see how we go for, Brisbane 2032. You never know. But, I mean, this is, of course, still the mid-90s where mental training in sport is not where it's at today, I can imagine as well. So it sounds like your coach was very ahead of his time almost to kind of get you to that point where within 12 months you're going to an Olympic Games.
Yeah, and not even only in 12 months, from not even winning a medal at national championships to all of a sudden everything coming together for the 1996 Olympic Games. I was in year 12 at the time. And so doing, I don't even know what it was called in Brisbane. It was the equivalent of VCE, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I had to kind of do year 11 and 12 over 3 years because I was traveling a lot that year. And it just kind of all came together the way that he said it was going to come together. But he just taught me to detach from emotion, detach from the end goal. And that, I guess, over the years had become my superpower. Look, it's not great in real life, if you detach too much from things, but in sport works really well.
I can definitely see the benefits of that, the negatives for life. What's that like then, though, when you're, you would have been 16, I guess, when you were announced, 17 when you go to the games, but 16-year-old being told that you're going to an Olympic Games. I mean, that must be an insane feeling to be told and react to that.
It was pretty unbelievable and something that I probably look back at now and think I didn't think it was that good an achievement at the time because I was so young with gymnastics. It was kind of ingrained for when I was 9 years old, you're going to go to the 96 Olympic Games. So it wasn't this massive stretch and other people probably celebrated it more than I did. I think the most disappointing thing for me, and I guess I set the standard pretty high, is that I went to the Olympic Games and I didn't actually anticipate what it'd be like. We went to the opening ceremony and to walk into the stadium in Atlanta in front of 120,000 people was just the most insane experience. I was a 17-year-old. If you had ever gone to a diving competition in Australia, we get about 25 people in the stands. It's not a big spectator sport. So to have that adrenaline going into the competition, then the actual competition itself, to get selected for the team, I went to a competition in Mexico and it was probably only my second international event. I actually won the entire event. So wow. I probably went into the Olympics thinking, okay, I'm a real shot here. But I underestimated what it would take because the Olympic Games is beyond anything you've ever experienced. Yeah. And I ended up missing out on semi-finals by one spot.
I can say you just missed out, didn't you? It was like one spot.
I did, yeah. I just missed out by one spot and I could have very easily made it, but at the end of the day, I was an unknown. I was a little girl in, what is a really big event and I probably wasn't as mentally strong as I should have been. But having said that, it really did set things up for the 2000 Olympics and what I wanted to achieve.
I was going to ask that because we've sort of discovered with several athletes on this show that, they maybe get one Olympics over and done with when maybe they're not expected to go to one, and the next one where they're planning on, it's a bonus that you're able to kind of get all of that Olympic hoopla out of the way, because you're involved in very unique Olympics, of course, too, Ludi, particularly your first couple. I mean, Atlanta, the centenary of the Olympics, America, the Coca-Cola Games, as they call it, obviously a huge deal. And then your next Olympics, little Olympics in Sydney in your backyard. So do you feel, and we'll get to Sydney obviously in a moment, but do you feel that experience, as you were saying, to get all those little things that an Olympics brings compared to other competitions was able to make your Sydney experience all the more better?
I think it really did, and to experience an Olympic Games, and even at a Commonwealth Games at a different kind of level, it's a similar village environment. It's multi-sport. It's not just diving. You've got your opening ceremonies. I think by the time we got to Sydney, we understood a little bit more that it's not about the opening ceremony. It's not about the entire experience. It's about the actual competition, and we did more to prepare for that. So that was really the big takeaway. And people think the Olympic Games are so much fun and, what goes on in the Olympic Village. But at the end of the day, as an athlete that wants to do well, you kind of have to ignore that and be really disciplined in not getting too overwhelmed and excited with your external surroundings. And that's how the 96 Olympic Games prepared me for the Sydney Olympic Games.
In terms of between Atlanta and Sydney, a couple of things obviously change. We see synchronised diving introduced to the Olympics for the very first time. For retrospect, for some people who maybe have grown up on the fact that there were 8 events at diving at the Olympics, back in Atlanta there were 4. You had the men's
Correct.
and women's platform, and then obviously the springboard. So there was only 2 events of that. At what point do you transition into synchronized? Were you always doing this, and then also going from a 3-meter springboard into the platform? Sort of, was this always in your repertoire, or was this sort of you adapted and changed in the lead up to Sydney?
It was definitely an adaptation. So I was predominantly a springboard diver going into the 96 Olympic Games. I was actually too scared to jump off 10 metres. It was way too high.
I can imagine.
So many things could go wrong. It's the height of a 3-story building. You're travelling at 60 kilometres per hour. So I actually didn't jump off the 10-metre platform until I was about 18 years old.
Wow.
And then, again, Chava Sobrino, Mexican coach, living in Australia, is relocated, went, you've really got a chance here. And I trusted my coach so much that I just, whatever he said, I would do. That's what
including
the coach
jumping off a 3-story building. Okay.
Yeah, exactly right. And then I think, in 1998, competed in my first nationals in platform and won the event.
Wow.
Because I was small, because I was powerful, I was able to do high degree of difficulty for the time. And that was, I guess, now I'm in marketing, my value proposition is that I was able to be powerful, also spin very fast, and complete more rotations than the other girls at the time. So that was 1998. And then when we heard that synchronized diving was going to be added as an event, it was very strategic. So you've got your blue ribboned events, which is the individual. But at the end of the day, Chava really saw that an Olympic medal was an Olympic medal. It doesn't matter if it's in a relay. It doesn't matter if it's in a marathon, if it's in diving, and a lot of other countries probably didn't put the same emphasis on that. And they have now. They've realised that. And there are countries now that only have synchronised diving strategies. So I guess, in Australia, we don't have a lot of numbers. So the depth of our availability of athletes, it's not large numbers. So we have to pretty much make do for synchronised diving of who does the individual events. And myself and Rebecca Gilmore, who also trained in Sydney at the time, we were quite different in stature, but somehow we made it work for synchronised diving. Because synchronised diving was the first time to go into the Olympic Games as well, you couldn't increase the total team size of the diving. So the emphasis was put on the individual who made the individual spots, and then you just kind of match up with other people. And then it's progressed so much since then. As I mentioned, people are now specialized synchronized divers. But at the time, no, it was pretty much just you have to qualify your spot because the Sydney Olympic Games was in Australia. We automatically qualified our spot, but normally it's a process of all the countries go to World Championships and then throughout the year, and then top 8 teams qualify for a straight final at the Olympic Games.
So to clarify on that, Ludi, at that period of time, it basically comes down to because you and Rebecca were the 2 that qualified, you will be in the synchronized, and then you 2 basically have to team up and work together.
Pretty much.
Wow.
At the time, yeah.
Okay. So how does that affect your training? Because on one side, as you're saying, you get automated slots. So it basically, Australia's going to be there. It's just going to come down to which 2 are going. But like at that point, say, was there another diver that maybe you would train more with and that Rebecca wasn't someone you were training with? Or was Rebecca the one that you had been training with in preparation that you 2 would be the 2 to get those slots?
Yeah, look, it's all a bit of a blur. And I think at the time, Chava just took control of it and went, okay, this is what's happening. And it was a combination of, okay, who's the best synchro pair, who's the best individual pair, and that's how the selection policy played out.
Mm-hmm.
What transpired in other Olympic Games afterwards was that people would focus on synchro and be prioritised for selection. But because this was the first time that synchro was at the Olympic Games, individual was prioritised, and that's how it worked.
Did you prefer how that worked later on? Like, would you then transition more into synchro, or did you kind of prefer it, the individual aspect mixed with then the team followed afterwards?
It's very, very different. Synchronized diving it's like you've got someone to hold your hand next to you, and it kind of takes away the fear of platform diving. So I enjoyed it in that regard. But having said that, individual it was still blue ribboned, and it's still something that you wanted to focus on. And I think as you get older, and when I say older, these athletes are, 28, 29 years old, synchronized, people become specialists because it's easier on the body. You only have to do 3 of that very difficult optional dives, whereas in individual, you have to do 5 or 6 for the men. Of the optional dives. It's
so fascinating taking this trip down memory lane with you, Ludi, because again, you watch the Olympics now and synchronized diving is just such a part of the schedule that you don't think anything but. But I mean, I remember vividly back in Sydney when watching it for the very first time because there were so many new events. We obviously had like triathlon, we had taekwondo joining it and all these other ones that sort of are now staples of the Olympics. But was it an event that was, I guess, considered a high event outside of the Olympics? Had this been on like the World Cup and the World Championship scene, or was this something just kind of completely new and added and the diving community were, slow to adapt to it?
No, it had been on the world stage for a couple of years. So at the World Championships earlier that year, Rebecca and I went to the World Cup, which was they always have an Olympic test event before the Olympic Games, and we did medal at that one as well. And that's probably when we first kind of really thought that we had a shot at medaling at the Olympic Games. But yeah, it wasn't as if it just kind of rocked up at the Olympics. It's like count 1, 2, 3, go with your partner and jump off at the same time. No.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Just pot luck. Oh, you didn't die on that one, so you get a bronze. That's kind of how it works that way. Just in terms of that vibe though, in the lead up, I mean, Sydney 2000, everyone of us who remember it knows just what Australia was like in that. But as an athlete, when you were getting closer and closer, did it add extra pressure? Was it more exciting? Kind of, do you remember sort of the lead up into what eventually would be an amazing experience for you, not just because of the medal?
It was an unbelievable experience, actually. I think it put us at somewhat of a disadvantage, if I'm honest, in terms of there were certain things that had to happen to Homebush Stadium for it to be an Olympic venue. So they had to remove the walls, they had to build more seating, they had to do certain renovations on the building, and that was during the June, July months, and it was freezing to train in. We remember it being like 19 degrees inside. We'd have to when it's 19 degrees and the water's really cold and you're jumping off a 10-metre platform, it feels like absolute concrete when you hit it. So becoming injured and things like that. So having said that, though, that probably made us very mentally tough, and realizing what they had to do to the building to get it ready for the Olympic Games and how big that event was. We did remove ourselves from Sydney like before the event for 1 or 2 months, and then to come back and to have it all ready, and the vibe in Sydney. I actually lived probably 15 minutes from the stadium at the time, but, stayed in the village and everything like that. But I think the biggest thing for us is that we could have friends and family come and watch us at the Olympic Games. And I look at replays now, I'm like, wow, that was pretty bloody special.
Yeah, particularly given that some athletes, in the last couple of Olympics didn't have any fans, given what happened around COVID and everything along those lines too. But I mean, just on that, one thing that I think is different this time around in the lead up to Brisbane is that while there's definitely excitement for Brisbane, it doesn't seem to be on that level as it was for Sydney in those years. I realise obviously Brisbane's had a bit more of a longer lead in than Sydney did, but do you kind of feel that it's not quite that same level of hype that we had in those years to Sydney? Or maybe we're just not there yet. Maybe we need to get a few more years closer to Brisbane before entire Australia really gets that Olympic feeling that we had in the lead up to Sydney.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's a lot of political issues going on at the moment, and that doesn't help the situation. I think, rightly or wrongly, I will say, I think the issue with the Victoria Commonwealth Games maybe took the shine off it just a little bit, and I think that was a shame, because I also competed at the 2006 Melbourne Commonwealth Games, and it was unbelievable. It had the same vibe as a Sydney Olympics. I think the big build up to Sydney was the fact that we hadn't had an Olympics since 1956 in Melbourne. And it really put Australia on the stage as a great sporting nation. We had a lot of funding going into those games. We won a lot of medals. I think it was a very, very successful games.
Still, to clarify all the Paris news, in terms of medals won, Sydney is still our most successful. Gold medals won at Paris, but no one's beaten Sydney in terms of total medals won.
Yeah, and it's just, and as you say, that was 25 years ago. Yeah. So there's been a couple of Olympics in that time. I think as it gets closer to Brisbane, the excitement will build. When it first got announced, I think it was the same kind of excitement. It's now the fact that people are talking about building new stadiums, and the infrastructure becomes overwhelming to think about. But once the Games gets there, I know that it'll be fantastic. And every Games has its criticism as well. We competed at 2004 Olympic Games in Athens, and everyone was saying, oh, it's not ready. And we got
Still
there.
Isn't,
and you know what?
I don't think.
I don't think so. You know what? We got there. It wasn't ready, but it was actually a fantastic Olympics.
Mm. It's funny, actually, even Paris, like we got there 2 weeks beforehand. This is Paris. But you sort of get off the plane and you're walking the airport and you're like, the city's hosting an Olympics in 2 weeks. Are they ready? Like you sort of, even then in a city like that. So it's fascinating. And also I think we've talked a lot about here with Sydney as well, is that, I mean, a lot has happened in 25 years, as you were saying, but I think you hit the nail on the head. Like it was 44 years in between Melbourne and Sydney. This is now only going to be 32 years. For the majority of us, we all vividly remember Sydney, and not to take away from the people who were, say, our age back in the lead up to Sydney who remember Melbourne, but obviously a much different time in terms of how that happens. So it's almost like we're in that unique perspective where so many of us are experiencing 2 Olympics in our lifetime in our home country, which was unfathomable in the lead up to Sydney, because that just didn't happen to Australia back then, did it?
Yeah, absolutely. But we've shown that people come to our Olympic Games, our athletes do well. I still strongly believe in the Olympic movement. I think sport's got an amazing way of putting all politics aside and really bringing people together, from the people that do win medals and the people that are just there to have pride for their country. So the Olympic movement is not going anywhere.
The reason I also wanted to emphasise the fact that Australia's most successful Olympics in terms of medals won is Sydney. I'm tangent quickly, Ludi. I'm an advocate that medal tables should be sorted by total medals, not gold medals. Ooh. That's just my opinion. I'm on the NBC bandwagon in the US. If you win 50 bronze medals, why is that not more powerful than winning 1 Olympic gold medal? That's a whole other story. But you, of course, get a bronze in Sydney, which is part of that total medal table. Now, for many people who maybe are listening to this outside of Australia, or maybe weren't as around for Sydney to realise what a big deal that moment was, Not only was this bronze medal for Australia with yourself and Rebecca the first ever diving medal by females at an Olympic Games, 76 years it had been at that point since Australia had medalled in diving, since the great Dick Eve won gold back in the high diving back in Paris in 1924. Two-part question. First of all, how aware were the divers going into that Olympics that it had been that long? Was it extra pressure, essentially? Like, it's been 76 years, we've got to break this drought. And like, how much was that being
Pretty
told
much.
to you? It was, okay.
Yeah, pretty much that was the message. It's been 76 years, you've got to win a medal or our program will be scrapped. So
wow, no pressure.
No pressure whatsoever. So look, we didn't go into the competition. I think I talked earlier about detachment being a superpower. Once you're actually there, you don't think about it, but it was very much drummed into us that we haven't won a medal in 1920, or 76 years since 1924. Now's the chance.
And then the second part of that question is when you achieve that, get that medal. I mean, emotions of yourself personally for winning an Olympic medal, but then ultimately you've probably got a lot of people going, thanks for saving the program, I've still got a job on Monday. I mean, just everything that obviously came with that moment, because I can't imagine a medal that maybe had more weight and significance on it at those Olympics than the one that you won that night.
Yeah, so it was myself and Rebecca, and then I think 2 hours later, it was Dean and Steve. Oh,
Robert.
Please, yeah, Robert.
Yeah, won the medal, yeah.
It was a long time ago.
Hello, Robert.
Yeah, that's okay. Steve won an Olympic medal in 2004, so I do remember now. But and it's just it wasn't just that moment. Australia divers have won a medal at every single Olympic Games since.
Yeah.
So it was the snowball effect of understanding what success meant at that point. It was such a big relief. There's footage now that if you watch it, when Rebecca and I did our last dive, the crowd went up, very exciting. Chava Sabrino, who I mentioned before, is bawling his eyes out on the side, and he just knew immediately. And I think he hid things very well, and I think we realised how big it was when we saw Chava. Like, he'd finally kind of cracked it for Australia, and then the next 2 weeks after that was just fantastic. It was fun.
You could party as much as you want then, basically, going on that point, because it was just a massive party, wasn't it, essentially, from that point onwards there. But, I mean, sort of with everything that came with it, obviously with the boys winning the medal that night as well, I mean, did that set the standard then for what we're seeing this millennium? Essentially, we had young kids wanting to do diving. The money came, I'm guessing that was the absolute foundation to what we've seen in the new millennium for Australia and diving.
Very much so, and it puts diving on the map, really. And in Australia, it's really, really popular in sports like Canada and Mexico, where perhaps swimming doesn't get the limelight in the pool, and that's what we're competing against. If you don't win medals at the Olympic Games, you've got the swimmers who are absolute superstars, and now we win medal in athletics. And we also always see an uptick in participation after Olympic Games, after we get some TV coverage, media coverage, and that's what we're really working on at Diving Australia at the moment too.
You talked before about going into Atlanta as kind of a bit of an unknown. You were fresh face there. Nobody really didn't know you. Obviously, your second Olympics, you come away with a medal, and we're going to talk about sort of that progress into Athens. But did you find then, as you became more known as a diver, that helped or hindered you? Some people relish the pressure, some people hate it. Like, what did you feel that extra attention as you got throughout your career, as you got better and better?
Yeah, it was interesting because, as I mentioned, competing didn't come naturally to me, and I was good and I had potential and I made teams, but really winning international medals didn't come till around 99 and then 2000. And I think from 2001, I medaled in every international event till I retired in 2006. So for me, it just gave that congruent belief and the confidence that I needed. And I didn't see it as additional pressure. I just knew that it was my job to perform and the judges would go with me. Because at the end of the day, it's still a subjective sport.
Yes.
If there is an unknown that does an absolutely amazing dive compared to someone that they've seen in training do it over and over and over again, then there might be a little bit of a half a point. And I probably shouldn't say that, But at the end of the day, and I'm just going to clarify, the judges do go through grading themselves. So they have to be all within half a point. There can't be too many discrepancies, and they have scorecards that they go through to become a certified international judge. And if there's too much bias seen, they get removed from that panel. So they're under a lot of pressure as well. But it's just when you see an athlete who you're egging on to do really well because you've seen them do it before, it's kind of like the whole stadium lifts and there's an atmospheric shift that you just can't deny it. You have to get excited, and it's amazing to watch. So that probably helped me in my heyday, if you like.
Yep.
But, looking back, I probably didn't do as well as I should have done. I still had moments of, I didn't win an Olympic gold medal. I only came second at World Championships and, things like that. So,
but that period after Sydney, between Sydney and Athens, I mean, you talked about how you essentially medalled at every event you went to. I mean, to go through that period, Commonwealth Games gold, World Championship silver, World Championship bronze, you got 2 World Cup silver medals. I mean, leading into Athens, you were doing pretty okay. You end up with a bronze in the 10-metre platform, and obviously, that was a breakthrough event with Chantel winning the gold in that one as well. But were your targets, I mean, this is a dumb question to always ask Olympia, but I ask it anyway. Your targets, I'm assuming, were gold for that. And do you leave disappointed because you didn't get gold?
Yeah, so my family's too scared to talk to me about the 2004.
All right, okay, buckle up then.
No, because you look at Sydney and you go, I won a bronze medal.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at Athens and you go, I lost the gold medal. And that's, whilst it's very close to my heart, it's an individual medal, it's still a bronze medal, it did break my heart a little bit. But I have to be very, very happy for Chantel because she dove amazingly. And I've replayed what happened over and over and over again. And I think I went into the final I just went in way too relaxed. I remember sitting on the bus on the way to the final thinking, oh, wow, I could retire after this.
Wow.
Whereas I just wasn't switched off enough like I normally am, that detachment that I talk about. And that's about getting into the zone. I wasn't nervous enough. And it all came down to a split second rather than did I go in it thinking that I could win a gold medal. Because, yeah, of course, the intentions are right. And, yes, I had the self-belief, but it was one moment of too much adrenaline that probably cost me. But kudos to Chantel, the lady that got the silver medal, and all in all, it was a pretty good result for Australia. So
I love to ask the obviously stupid questions about did you want a gold medal, but sometimes you need to ask them, Ludi. But I love hearing that sort of like, I wasn't nervous enough. I've never heard it quite described that way before.
And look, you rack your brain, and people have asked me, what happened? It's like I had way too much adrenaline. I just had a moment of, my brain didn't work, or my brain was overthinking, and I just wasn't. Did I want the gold medal? Yes, I wanted the gold medal, and it's probably the one that got away and the reason that I kept diving for so long. So 2008, I had obviously met Simon, and I got injured at that trials.
In Hobart, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was in Hobart. Maybe that's saying something.
Well, I mean, if Simon was there, I don't know, like connecting there, but the aquatic centre, I can't remember what they've called it, a different name now, but I mean, probably, I don't know, was it collapsing at that point? They haven't done it up, and that was, 17 years ago? They still haven't done it up, Ludi, so...
I think it's still a pretty good facility, if I'm not honest.
It is pretty good. Yeah. It's held its way that well. But I mean, just before I get to what happened there with Beijing, like it's obviously that mixed emotions too, because the key moment there outside of the gold is, as you said, Chantel wins the gold, which again, groundbreaking, as we said, the medal drought, and this is the gold medal drought that's sort of been broken there as well. And I remember vividly how much that was celebrated back in Athens. So you've got that mixed emotions of you're incredibly disappointed you haven't won the gold. You've also won another Olympic medal, so that's, still a positive. But then you've got a teammate who I'm sure you're very good friends with, celebrate with her that she's won a gold. So what's that first night like after that event where it's kind of a mixture of I'm happy, but I'm very angry at the same time?
Yeah. There was never any anger. It was very much sadness for me, and my heart was just completely broken. But as you said, very happy for Chantel. We celebrated. It is an unbelievable feeling when you win an Olympic medal, regardless of the colour, when you go back to the Australian headquarters, because you are celebrated. It is like they make sure that every single person that walks back into that headquarters is celebrated for what they achieve. And when you're in the village, they have a tally of all the medals, and it's like, oh yeah, we got another one. And then by that stage, people had finished competing in their respective sports, so they'd come and watch, and it really was great camaraderie. So sadness, but happiness and disappointment. And, you know, at that time I was 25 years old. I thought my days were numbered. In hindsight, I probably should have, just kept going. And, I was ready to do other things, and because I'd been doing sport since I was 9 years old.
It's a bit of a period of time there to kind of to do that sort of stuff. So what then was, you kind of answered before, the drive then to go towards Beijing was the gold that got away? That's what kept driving you to go to then fourth Olympics?
Yeah, I think so. But I unfortunately, got injured in Beijing. As I mentioned, in 2004, I was also studying at uni, doing media and communications degree, and I finished that just after Athens and went off and got a job. So I got a taste of what other life was like. I think at the time, around 2004, 2005, we probably started to make money from diving, but it wasn't enough to be a full-time professional athlete. So there was always...
Crazy, you're in it for nearly 10 years and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, cool, now I'm finally making money. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And I think the divers now are quite lucky in that they can make full-time salaries off this.
They're all, doing podcasts and influencers. Come on.
I tell you what, though, I probably wouldn't have been able to handle that level of scrutiny. So I'm probably lucky that I came before a time of YouTube. And but having said that, they can make it their career. Yeah. They can get additional sponsorship, and there's also like a world tour that goes on where they can get good prize money if they medal, and some of the divers are doing great for themselves. And I'm happy that, in answer to your previous question as well, like the impact that diving doing well in the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games has had on the current generation is just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, the names now that we household names. I mean, I'm talking influencers. Sam Fricker obviously is, going off doing good things there. Matthew Mitchum obviously was what we saw happen in Beijing. I mean, Melissa Wu. I mean, the name speaks for itself. Like, I mean, these are household names, basically, as you were saying, divers in Australia. Whereas, in the lead up to Sydney, I'm sure the most casual of fans could probably not name an Australian diver. So it's sort of it's changed that way. After the injury that prevented you from going to Beijing, you get married, you have children. Then at what point do you go, hang on a minute, maybe I've got another Olympics in me? Because you eventually do make London. You eventually do get to go to that fourth Olympics.
Unbelievable. I did, so 2008, again, was very devastating. But I went and worked in the corporate world, went on maternity leave, had a baby. I will add in there, I met Simon after the 2004 Olympic Games in the Greek islands. He was on a footy trip.
Wow.
And I was there after the Athens Olympics. So
not bad place to meet. There you go.
There you go. And when my baby was about 5 months old, I needed something for me. There's a time in a woman's life, you're an athlete, you lose your identity, you go into a job, you become a mum, you lose your identity again. So it was about just really doing something for myself and finding out who I really was. And I said to Simon, how about I go compete at Masters? We can do a family vacation. I'll just jump in the pool every now and then. And after my first training session, I'm like, oh, wow, my body's actually still okay. Like, I don't feel like it's going to break. And that was 11 months out from the London Olympic Games, and somehow, but as I mentioned before, like, it's just a God-given gift.
It's crazy, as long as your body's, though, that you're going for Masters at like 32. And yeah, it was fun. I honestly could have kept going. I could have kept going after the London Olympic Games. I was actually in peak fitness after a baby, because I think you have to manage your time better. Mm-hmm. You've got a child that's waking up every 2 hours a night. They're your responsibility. The focus is no longer on you. So
every moment of training had to count. Every moment of being in the pool had to count. I didn't have the luxury of going home and having a nap during the day. So yeah, it was a really fun time, and I'm glad that I did it. Didn't get the fairy tale ending. I came fourth
though. I mean, that's still not bad.
Yeah, I don't know what's worse, like coming third and losing. Yeah, anyway, that's another story.
I put the positive, Ludi, the fact that 11 months before an Olympics you weren't even going and you're left with fourth. I mean,
yeah, look, it was fun.
Pretty good. So,
it was fun. I went to my 4 Olympic Games and I'm happy with that.
Which it's crazy to think that just how life can change, and then all of a sudden you go that and 11 months later. In London too, I mean, all the Olympics you went to, again, very unique, but London, which, like, without being disrespectful to Rio and Tokyo and then Paris, it's kind of almost the last, I want to say, normal Olympics that we've had, because each Olympics that have followed have had their unique identity, which people talk about. Whereas London, I feel, let's use a different word, last traditional games we've had before sort of this modern takeover. So, I mean, on that, can you compare the 4, like, in terms of favourites, memories, experiences of all the 4 that you went to?
I also went to Rio as a commentator.
And you went to Rio as a commentator. There you go.
And I think that was hands down my favourite Olympics.
Oh, really? Just because you were a commentator and you could just have the fun?
Yeah, look, I just didn't get as nervous, and I could actually soak in the entire Olympics experience. Mm-hmm. When you're an athlete and you've got pressure on you, it's very much you have to put the walls up. And diving is generally towards the last day, so you don't have a lot of free time. Yes, you can enjoy it. Yes, you can go to other events, but you've always got this, you know, the event hanging over your shoulder. So Rio was my favourite. Before that, probably Athens. But I can't split them. Now you're saying that. And then Sydney was amazing, and then Atlanta was amazing as well. So very unique.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Athens, because I feel like it's one of these ones that has such a negative legacy with everything that happened afterwards and the venues and what happened in Greece. But I loved every second of watching Athens, and just it seemed like such a fun Olympics. And every athlete we've had on this show who went to Athens have said, like, just to be in the birthplace of the Olympics and experience everything along those lines really was an incredible. So I'm glad you're singling out Athens there, Ludi. And more talk and more love for Athens on this show. Yeah,
I agree. More love for Athens.
Yeah.
They had their own way, but it worked.
Yeah,
it worked.
Exactly. It always ends up working, as we were saying before, in the lead up to that. We also always like to find out with our medalists on this show, Ludi, what do you do with the medals? Where are your 2 Olympic medals right now as we speak?
It's interesting. They're actually in my study, just downstairs. They could be in the safe.
Again, we're never trying to rob our Olympians. I always want to clarify that, but it's more of a...
Don't. I did try to get them out the other day. I asked my son if he'd like to take them to school for Olympic Day, and he said no. So
he said no.
I guess no. I'm okay, thanks.
Wow, that's all right. Thanks, son. I'll just put them back in the safe then. Sorry. Wow, that's interesting. I just love the differences, because, you know, some people, they'll be in a museum, they'll be on display. Others, they're just in a sock drawer. So, you know, kind of that. Do you have plans, like with not just your Olympic medals, but obviously your World Championship medals, World Cup, Commonwealth Games medals? Is there maybe a plan one day to frame them or do something with them? Or is it just a case of you're happy just to kind of get them out every now and then when someone asks for them?
Yeah, I think so. It takes a lot for me to get them out. Mm-hmm. And I'm very selective. And I've realised now that I get them out, I'm like, oh no, can you please not touch them? So, you can look at them, but you can't touch them. Exactly right. But that's only in the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, I mean, it's also the case that Olympic medals, the more worn they are, the better, right? Because, you know, it's the love they've been handed around the show and that one. Just on Sydney 25 years, obviously, we're recording this at the back end of May in 2025. Are you planning on doing anything to celebrate, or have you been contacted? Is there any sort of, you know, big things happening, do you know, for the 25-year celebration of Sydney 2000?
I think the Australian Olympic Committee will have a commemoration event. Mm-hmm. Other than that, as I mentioned, I'm in the corporate world now. I don't talk about diving all that much, but it's still early days, and I just appreciate that you reached out and so I could relive everything.
Well, we're happy to, Ludi, because that was another thing I was going to bring up. Obviously, a lot of people knew you back in the days, Ludi Talkie. So it's kind of like, do you almost feel like you can kind of be a bit of like a, you know, Batman sort of person and hide behind a moniker so that if people...
Well, I've changed my name about 15 times. So I actually competed as Ludi Wiggins in the 2012 Olympic Games. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to the into the corporate world, I kind of changed the spelling of my first name.
We did clarify that you were the lead up because it's the spelling of our
we did.
Yeah.
And it's not, I just want to be really clear, it's not to go incognito. It's just because the English language can sometimes not be very forgiving. So it makes things easier on a day-to-day basis. Eventually people just kind of find out, and
what's that
I
like?
then talk about it.
Do you
but
like
I do when they do find out. I don't mind talking about it, but I will never lead with it.
Hi, I'm Ludi. I'm an Olympic diver. You should try that one time. Just go to McDonald's or something like that.
Probably.
I have a large cheeseburger meal and I won 2 Olympic medals. Thanks. You might get free stuff. They were sponsoring the Olympics back then. So
exactly
they might be like,
right.
you have some free fries with that too. But I mean, it's obviously one of those things that I can imagine where it's like you're obviously proud of your achievement, so you're happy to talk about it. But now that, going back to your point about there's life after diving, you've moved on and that sort of stuff, it doesn't form your life anymore. So it's kind of like this beautiful part that you lived, but now it's sort of, you're so far removed from it that it's not something that's going to come up in everyday conversation.
Yeah, it's not. But I guess in a corporate setting, when people find out, it makes a lot of sense to them because I'm a workaholic. I love output in terms of the visibility of what I do and things like that. So it's like the penny drops. I'm still on the board of Diving Australia as well. So in some context, I still get to talk about it and talk about the future of diving within Australia and future Olympic Games. But yeah, it's not. And same with Simon, with footy, I guess. The only time he really talks about is if we go to a Carlton game and like, oh, Chief. It's like, how come you get recognised but I don't? Like, what is going on here?
That'd be the most hilarious thing if I'm like walking down the street and like wearing woolies and I see you both. I don't know who I'm going to react to because I'm a lifelong, true, passionate Carlton supporter. I'm like, fuck, Simon Wiggins. Like, Ludi, we're like, well, who do I go to first? Like, it's got to be.
I would go to Simon. I'd definitely go to Simon. He's much more friendly than I am.
I'll just mention my sister to see if he remembers her and all that sort of stuff. Just in terms of your position with Diving Australia, then I've got to ask the obvious question. When are we getting a pool named after Melissa Wu? Melissa Wu, like she deserves a pool.
She does deserve a pool.
Yeah.
We'll probably look soon. Let's table that and I'll get back to you.
Brisbane 2032. I mean, I realise it'll be the entire aquatic centre, will probably be the Kieran Perkins Aquatic Centre, but like we could at least have the pool called like the Melissa Wu.
Yeah,
pool.
the diving plunge Separate. Pool. Yeah, 100%.
It's got to be like something named after her. I mean, she deserves it at some point, amazing career. So there you go with that one. Ludi, we like to wrap up all of our questions, our interviews now with a set of 10 get to know you questions. These are standardised now. We used to do different ones, but these are now all the same for all of our guests. So there's no right or wrong answers, by the way, just to let you know. This isn't an absolute test. But I'll start off with the one thing that you never left home without when travelling to a competition. What was that?
My chamois.
Your chamois. Ah, okay. Was it like the same lucky chamois all the time?
Yeah, it had to be.
Wow.
I mean, we changed them over the course of 22 years, but yes.
I was going to say, does it last that long?
No, it doesn't last that long.
That would be a very interesting looking chamois after 22 years. There you go. A tradition or superstition that you followed before every big competition?
This is really, I had a lot of superstitions, as do many athletes. I think the biggest one was I had to be nervous.
You had, well, there you go. We discovered that, right?
I know.
You had to be nervous.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
If I'm not nervous enough, it's just not going to happen.
Isn't it interesting how like sometimes, like just in general life, sometimes you get a bad feeling. It's like the Star Wars thing. I've got a bad feeling about this. The opposite.
Go with your intuition. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's kind of like the opposite of that one. Interesting. What was a song that was on every one of your pre-competition playlists, no matter what?
I used to listen to Bob Marley.
Oh, okay.
I know.
Chill.
And you'd think that would have, like, you'd want something to ramp you up and get you excited, but it was just I think it's the power of just disconnecting.
Yeah, we've found that. We've found that with some athletes where, like, we had Taramana Jr., great boxer on the show, and he said, like, he listens, like, very laid back. You'd think, like, a boxer's going to be like, yeah, come on, pump me up. But he's basically just, oh, yeah, man, whatever. Chill going into a ring. I liked it. Did you have a particular track by Bob that you liked or just?
Oh, look, it was a long time ago.
Long time ago?
Yeah.
Whatever the zone was feeling?
Yeah, whatever was there.
Was this, I don't want to, I'm not.
It evolved. Look, it evolved.
It evolved, okay.
I'll send you the playlist.
Please do, because I'm also not going to try and age you the way I say this, but I mean, this would have been what, like like on a Discman, basically, right? We didn't have playlists on Spotify back then, so
No, we didn't.
had to change the best of
We
CD
didn't.
every now and then. Now, obviously, you sort of retired back end when social media was just starting. So I don't know if you might have gotten these back when you were competing or not, but did you ever receive an unexpected or funny direct message from anybody during your time as an athlete?
So I think 2012, I think Facebook was around 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some random direct messages again. I'm glad I wasn't in that era. I don't think I would have been able to handle it. I generally just ignore. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't ignore mine, so thank you.
Well,
for
I
that.
didn't know because, it was.
Appreciate that, Ludi.
Yeah.
All those other podcasts who were on the show get stuffed. She didn't ignore me. There you go. Simple. The weirdest thing that you ever ate at an international competition, and did you like it?
Oh, I needed to prep for this question. The weirdest thing I ever ate. I've been to so many countries. I think we counted them the other day. It was around 28. So,
Wow.
there was an interesting experience in Russia once. We stayed at Army Barracks and we had traditional food. It wasn't amazing, but it was an experience. So we'll put that one down there. I can't remember what specific food it was, but it was just let's just call it the entire experience.
So what I love this question brings is just that level of experiences, right? Like we're going to do a compilation eventually of some of the best answers for this one, and it's going to be an experience in itself. But there you go. I mean, on food still, did you ever have a guilty pleasure meal, ultimate guilty pleasure meal that after a competition you would just go crazy on?
So boring. No, I didn't.
You have one now?
I'm sorry. No, I'm a big appreciator of good food.
Good food.
So yeah.
Okay. Good. What?
Savory, not sweet.
Yeah, I'm a savory over a sweet guy. I would take that as well. It's something sometimes when you just get craving something like sweet can be good, but like savory, yeah. I'm on board with
savory.
that one. If you could swap sports for a day with another Olympian, what event would you choose and how do you think you would have gone?
Probably Lydia Lassila.
Oh, well, actually,
yeah.
I'm so glad you said that because that was going to be a follow-up. Did you ever get scouted by the aerials team?
No, I didn't. But apart from the fact that I've never skied and I don't like the cold,
bit of a detriment.
I watch those girls and they are unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to have tried it.
Well, this is the thing. We always like to sort of go off slightly at our aerial skiers for stop stealing our good gymnasts because maybe we've got some gymnasts out there that could have done well, but it's also divers as well. It's kind of those three sports that all connect. I feel it's sort of like diving, gymnastics, and aerial skiing. So I don't know if there's just friendly connections between all bodies that steal athletes.
There is actually.
Okay, good.
There's exchange programs, for
good.
lack of a better word.
It's not just like somebody's rocking up to diving training in a trench coat and a notepad. Yes, on platform 2 right now, steal her.
Look, I think for gymnastics, I think definitely we go around and identify gymnasts and do come and try days and things like that. But diving's much better than gymnastics.
They've got to get pissed off. So gymnasts at one point are just going to be like, dude, go away. Let us keep our athletes.
Maybe, but their athletes retire at 16.
Yeah,
so
true.
we can have them until they're 33 now.
Exactly. And then once you're 33, you go into aerial skiing.
You go into aerials, exactly. If your knees can hold up, go for it.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Once that, get into podcasting because, our knees never give up, I think. I don't know. I'll let you know about that one day. Now, this one's the one we always get a little bit of help with ChatGPT. This is always fun.
Oh, right. Oh, good.
If your Olympic journey were a movie, what would the title be and who do you think would play you?
Let's go to ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, all right.
Honestly, I don't think ChatGPT knows who I am.
Well,
it gets confused with all the name changes.
It does, and the one that always throws me slightly is when they say the actors that could play you. I swear to God, they just hear the word Australian and nominate random Australians who, So we'll get to that. But the titles that they've said, and I want you to choose the best one because then I'm going to get it to generate a poster for this one for you. Okay, so we've got Deep Grace, the Ludi Wiggins story. That one's not too bad. Beyond the Surface. That's okay.
Not bad.
Fearless Descent. Yeah.
Good.
This one's very to the point. It's just simply called Ludi.
Oh, right. I like it. I'm gonna throw one out there.
Okay.
So I work in marketing now. If someone sends me something from ChatGPT, I cringe. I'm gonna go Days of Our Dives.
Days of Our No, stop the count. That wins. That is brilliant. All right, Days of Our Die. That is fantastic. Okay, so let's while we ask the last couple of questions, I'm going to ask it to generate me a movie poster for a movie on Ludi Wiggins called Days of Our Dives. Let's see what it does there, and we will share that with you.
Careful of the images that are brought up, just quietly.
We'll make sure that it's appropriate, and otherwise we can do something else afterwards. While that's loading, question number 9. What is one question you were tired of being asked, and what's the one that you wish people would ask you instead?
Did you win an Olympic gold medal?
And the answer,
because that's the general.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, you went to the Olympics. Oh, how many Olympics did you go to? Oh, did you win a medal? Oh, was it gold?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let's just celebrate success.
Yep.
And yes, I'm not saying that Olympic gold medals are not great.
We're advocates on this show. It doesn't matter whether you win a medal or not. You go to the Olympics. I mean, that's a huge achievement indeed. So, I mean, the thing is with the whole post-nominal where you can have OLY on your name, you can obviously apply for that and everything along those lines too. I mean, huge initiative. But, I mean, look, my dream growing up, Ludi, was to just go to an Olympics. And, I host an Olympics podcast.
It's not too late.
I was trying to be a curler, but then I met Dean and Tali, and then that's never going to happen. So,
break dancing?
I was going to say, they bring it back, we'll see how we go with that. Is there a question that you wish people would ask you, like in terms of your career? Is it that can come down to, is there a story that you wish people would ask you about, or something that maybe a young diver asks you that you love answering?
I don't think so. I don't think there's, people are generally very interested when you tell them that they've been to the Olympics. I just wish that there's people that do other great things other than the Olympic Games as well. So maybe just not the pedestal. I know that is the whole purpose of the show. But
I completely get it. And then we're cancelled. Thanks for listening to Off the Podium. It's been an absolute pleasure. But I get it. I absolutely get it. And there's also, as we discover too, that we've had many athletes on this show who have even talked about how going to the Olympics almost kind of soured that sort of dream, that it turned into something different, and they're much more, prouder of, say, non-Olympic achievements and things like that, which again, that's the purpose of this show, is to hear these stories. I'm a journalist. We want to hear both sides of the stories, Ludi. It's that element to it there. The final one. This is a deep question then to end it on.
Ooh.
What's one lesson you learnt more from losing that you think shaped you more than winning?
That everything, regardless of the result, will still be okay.
Good answer. Oh, that's nice. I like that. There's your tagline for Days of Our Dives.
It'll still be okay.
It was like that. I'm just telling you now. You just sold the movie on that, just based on that tagline there. Which we've got a poster, and I'm gonna get this, hold it up, and then we will share this on our social media as well. Just while I'm fixing that one up, Ludi. In terms of people wanting to follow anything you're up to, is there anything that people can sort of stay up to date with what you want? If you don't want to share your social media, you don't have to. But it's entirely up to you.
Look, I am big on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Follow me on LinkedIn. Instagram, I'm private. It's mainly just snaps of my kids and my dog. So.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about your dog, Lou. Tell us about your dog quickly.
West Highland Terrier. If you haven't owned a West Highland Terrier and you get one, that's the only dog that you will love. She's also from Tasmania.
Oh, look. Yeah. Bookend with Tasmanian stuff on this show.
Exactly right.
What's her name? What's her name?
Her name's Daisy.
Daisy.
You can also follow her on Instagram.
Hey, got to have an account for it on Instagram. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a pro pet account person. One of my cats has an Instagram. Soon to have more Instagrams when I get another cat. I love dogs, don't get me wrong, but I'm more of a cat guy. But the point is, Instagram pets, celebrate it. All right? That's all I'll say.
Exactly.
Ludi, I'm going to show this poster. And the image is, I'm just going to say, maybe doesn't resemble you. They might not know who you are. But
that's okay.
Let's
go with it. Again, I've changed my name 16 times, changed my hair color 16 times.
Yeah.
Good one.
You're a bit of a resemblance to Ariane Titmus, I want to say.
Yeah, actually. Wow.
Ariane Titmus has turned into, maybe she's playing you in the movie.
Maybe.
Those Harvey Norman ads are doing well for her. She's getting into acting. So there you go. Ludi, absolute pleasure and an honor to have you on the show to learn about your journey and everything throughout your career. It's been an absolute pleasure. Good luck with everything moving forward, and happy 25 years to Sydney, a little bit later this year as well.
Thank you so much, Ben. That was fun.